Well, thank you, Stacy, for helping with my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so hi Nathan, glad to help out. As you know, I worked with you in the computer industry. That's where I've worked for the past 23 years. I am now retired and working towards an education certificate. I'm a native Texan and just happy to help out.
Could you talk a little bit about your education certificate? I didn't know you were working towards that.
Yeah, I didn't either. It just started this week. So I've decided in my retirement phase that I am going to try to be an English teacher at the secondary level. So that's what I'm now working towards.
Wow. So uh, like a junior or high school, or I mean, junior or
Yep,
senior in high school type thing?
yep. Either middle school or high school. Either way, I think I'm leaning towards high school, but I guess I'll go wherever I can get accepted. So I don't know if I'll be ready for the fall. It may be spring, but I'm doing as much as I can as fast as I can.
I, so I mean, English is a, a very important class, right? The ability to um, absorb information, the ability to express yourself in a coherent way. From a practical standpoint, it's like foundational, but then also language adds a whole new dimension in terms of like art and like poetry and prose and efficient ways and um, kind of really artistic ways to express things. And I was wondering, I know you just started this week, but I take it you chose English because you have some type of affinity towards maybe literature and communication. And I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about your vision.
Yes, so I actually, when I went to school many years ago, I went to be an English and a French teacher. And then I changed my mind halfway through. So I ended up with an English and communications degree with a minor in French, which I didn't really use. However, communications, I think, is really key. Like you said, it's kind of the foundation for language. I mean, you communicate every day, whether it's verbally or non-verbally, the way that you say things, the way that you express yourself. If you want to get something done, you need to create an argument for it. I mean, it's everywhere. One of the things that bothers me is that, I don't know if it bothers me, but one of the things, yeah, it bothers me, is that I think we've lost the grammar aspect of it and the ability to articulate on paper. You and I both know from a corporate world that a lot of what you do is written. And I just don't see that in the schools anymore. And I even looked it up before doing English. Um, I do agree in the artistic expression, like you said, literature. I love reading a good book. My favorite is Pride and Prejudice. Poetry. I think there are a variety of ways that you can express yourself. And I think that comes out maybe you choose a marketing career or you're going to do, hair, creative expression and styling someone's hair and coming up with hairstyles, whatever the case may be, right? But I still think you need that communication aspect because if you can't articulate clearly, even to the person that they want their hair cut, they're going to end up with something they didn't want and then they're going to be really mad at you. So I don't know if I really agree with that, but it's something I'm going to have to just live with. And I hope to embed that into my classrooms, the importance of the written word, the spoken word, but yeah, having some fun with it too and artistic. So we'll see. I haven't gotten to the English part yet. I'm just doing all of the Texas ethics and how to be an effective teacher and all the non-content stuff right now.
I don't know, ethics kind of plays a large role into it too, you know? Uh,
I'm learning a lot.
Well, I mean, just in terms of relating sort of the language of how the ethics is expressed to how it governs our actions. I mean, it's a big, mushy area, one that uh, lawyers really enjoy playing in, but, you know,
Well, what I'm learning with teaching is just don't do anything.
don't do anything. Yeah.
They're held to a very high standard from a corporate world, moving into a public sector world. You are a role model. I hear the same as like in military, you're a role model, and just don't do anything inappropriate ever, and just mind your P's and Q's and you'll be just fine.
Um, You know, one of the things that I've talked to over the course of my daily interviews is around how much human potential goes untapped and how we're really capable of doing way more than we actually do in terms of um, our skill development and coordination and team development of other people and actual effect on society in some positive way. And a lot of this, I think, stems from, at least with my two children, I've noticed that um, school is like really, really easy. Um, it seems like you have the same amount of people being challenged regardless of how easy you make it. It's just people always seem, I guess another way to put it is, people always seem to rise to the standard that they're required to rise, but often never further. Um, and I was just wondering, is this just an outsider's perspective in terms of education, or based upon your experience and you going into English, do you think the bar is set too low? And what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I just took a test on this. What they tell you for effective teachers, now this may be, maybe you don't have an effective teacher, right? So I don't think it's fair to say that this is a school district thing or what have you, because it really is. They say the most essential part of the learning is the classroom, and the teacher is the facilitator of that, right? But what they say, hang on, they inspire students to want to know more. And they say something to the effect, I was going to find the exact wording, but I can't find. Oh, teachers' high expectations of all students significantly influence student perspective. Meanings, if they set the bar high for all students, then all students are going to fundamentally do better. If you set a bar low, then everybody tends to just do what needs to be done. So it kind of sits with the teacher. And maybe if the district, now this is, I haven't taught, I have no clue, right? I've seen it with mine, you know, I already expressed my displeasure with the way that my kids have not really been graded harshly on the way that they write. And this has impacted them. They both took the ACT score and did horrible at the writing because they were never pushed to do that piece. And it's fine if you're not going to push them to do that piece, but then don't put it on the ACT where they're not going to. So I have kind of my own thoughts about that. But where I was going was if the district has lower expectations, then I think there are things that you can do in your classroom to raise that level. So maybe your lesson plan doesn't raise the bar, but you could put things in where they have to do critical thinking. They get in groups and they do projects. So I still think it lies on the teacher, and effective teachers will figure out how to raise the bar for everyone without leaving anyone behind. So you can do things, and that's my next session that I'm going to be taking training on, is how to set up your classroom, how to work with students. And I'm assuming they're going to go into that is how do you keep everybody challenged when they're all at different levels? And I think there's a way you can do that. And if the teacher isn't doing that, then it definitely is a disservice to the students for sure. So
And
don't dog on the district. It may just be the teacher, or who knows, right?
what about, you know, so much knowledge is sort of taught in isolation. You know, you have like your English and you have your science and you have your math and you have your music and you have your drama and you have your sports. And, you know, it's very much isolated to each of those areas. What kind of potential do you see in terms of, you know, kind of combining like science and writing and music and writing and kind of you know, finding the ways that they kind of reinforce and kind of explore each other.
One of the things that was in the teaching piece was about collaborative learning, and it's more around maybe not I imagine it would come to the classroom, but you have a panel of teachers who meet regularly and talk about students and their progress. What I've understood so far is that usually is departmental, but that this collaborative environment could bring in teachers from other areas as well. And I think you could have a kind of a knowledge sharing where if you know, the problem is with larger districts, it might, or larger schools, it might be harder for you to know what's going on in the science department. Whereas with smaller schools, it's probably a lot easier. You know, if you got 3 teachers in English and 3 teachers in science, you probably all know each other very well, right? My kid goes to one where, I don't know, there's 800 kids in the graduating class or something. So I don't know how easy it is there, but not impossible. Is one of the examples it provided was one very similar to what you just said, science and English, is that they had the science fair coming up, and part of the grading, I guess, if you will, was to have the English teacher have part of their lesson plan to be write the paper that goes along with it. And so they collaborated and had 2 different project, you know, one project, 2 different exercises in 2 different classes for 2 totally different grades, but they combined it together. So yeah, I think anything's possible. That's a great idea. Now, you have to be careful because usually if they're really good at science and math, I can attest from my kids being totally different, and I'm not a science math person, is that you have to go on people's strengths so you don't like totally dog them for their bad writing skills. You use it to help improve their writing skills, and it doesn't impact them winning the, you know, the science fair or whatever the case may be. And vice versa. I never did well at science fairs. I did the little drop, the little marble through the little thingy was my science fair project. But I could write a paper.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, sometimes just being able to come up with something small enough for a science fair and having a good presentation is a big challenge and learning experience. Um, yeah, and I think Einstein once said that if you judged a fish by how well it could climb trees, it would always be a failure or something.
I had not heard that one, but yes, I would imagine it is.
So, you know, it, the thing is sometimes we miss out on people's true potential because they kind of get boxed in a way that, uh, yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to play to their potential. It's not just about filling in the weaknesses, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I just did a wrong thing by saying STEM versus, you know, language and arts, right? I already kind of put them in their own little thing just based on what I've seen from my children. But
Well,
it's,
and some people even say STEAM, you know, where the A represents art. So it's kind of
I
interesting.
hadn't heard that one.
Yeah.
Yes,
So and expanded STEM becomes STEAM. You know.
yes.
So science fiction. You read any science fiction?
No, I don't.
Oh,
I've watched because of my kids, but no, I'm more of a murder mystery, uh, romance, like Pride and Prejudice type reader. But I've watched Star Wars and Predator and all those and Aliens, but no, I don't read them.
do you listen to audiobooks?
I do not. I thought about that. I told you before we started about me volunteering, and I'm all by myself washing stuff. And I was thinking, you know, this would be a good opportunity to put in my earbuds and listen to a book and actually get something accomplished. But no, until now, I really haven't had time. I'm more of a music person.
Um, so I imagine if you've seen like some science fiction on TV, maybe you saw The Martian. Um,
Which one was that?
it's the one where there's this mission to Mars and they come back early and this one guy is left for dead, but he's really not dead.
Was that
And
with Wahlberg?
not Wahlberg, but Matt Damon.
Yes, 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 yes. I did see that. I did, yes.
So the guy that wrote that one also wrote a heist mystery book that's based on the moon called Artemis. And the audiobook for it, I think, is really well done. So
Artemis.
Artemis, yeah, I really enjoyed it. The actress that reads the part, she does a fantastic job, I think.
I have credits at Amazon. I'll have to go check it out.
Awesome. So Artemis is a good segue into the whole moon thing because, incidentally or coincidentally, the plan to send people back to the moon is called Artemis, and Artemis is like in Greek mythology is the sister of Apollo, so it kind of works out that way. And one of the things that they plan to do with that first landing in 2024 is actually have a woman land on the moon, because we've had 12 men walk on the moon in between 69 and 72. Um, and I was wondering, first of all, had you heard about NASA's plan to send people back to the moon in 2024?
No, I had not. And I assume you're talking like real astronauts, not the whole inhabitating, inhabitants that trying to get people in space like us living there. You're talking astronauts.
Exactly. So these would
Okay.
be professional astronauts. A modern day Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong are, I guess, since it's a girl, Buzzy Aldrin and Neely Armstrong. So,
No, I had not until I saw that in your invite. I was not aware of that.
and out of most of the people I've talked to, they've not been aware of it either, despite NASA being active on social media, and even got mentioned in the State of the Union address, and I think like the Chronicles run a few articles on it too. But um, I
Yeah,
think
I'm surprised only because what I hear about is defunding space, right? I know that our current president has been all about trying to beat that back up, but then when you have the private sector now doing space things, right? You kind of wonder, is NASA on a back burner? So I'm glad to hear that they're not, but I think that's why probably I haven't really heard much or paid much attention, because I didn't feel like they were getting maybe the level of funding and the level of respect that they had previously.
yeah, and what you talked about there is sort of like the way that we used to do things and sort of the limitations of that, and potentially a new way that we could do things. I mean, like with Apollo, NASA designed the rocket. They got contractors from Lockheed and uh, a whole bunch of other companies to actually build the rockets under their direction. And the government completely owned and designed the entire process from end to end using cost plus contracting. We'll pay you whatever it costs to build it, just get it done and get it done this way. But what we found out is that that's really expensive in the sense that you have lots of cost overruns because there's no motivation to cut back cost, and you have a lot of schedule overruns. And so, do you know the last time the space shuttle flew?
No, it wasn't that long ago though, was it? Or was it?
2011.
Was it really?
Yeah. And we've been still sending American astronauts to space. Do you have any ideas on how they got there?
No.
The Russians sent them. So we were buying seats from the Russians to send our astronauts to the International Space Station at the cost of something like $90 million a seat.
Wow.
Yeah. But NASA started this program called the Commercial Crew Program, where they said, hey, we are going to have individual companies essentially develop a service, and we'll just buy seats from those companies. And we'll kind of give them a little bit of money along the way and make sure they meet our criteria and what have you. And through that process, both Boeing and SpaceX created a way to send astronauts into space. And SpaceX actually just successfully sent 2 astronauts into space
Right.
at the beginning of June. And what's neat is that NASA is just buying seats on uh, these rockets, and you and I could buy a seat too. Just need 55 million, but just
Just pocket change.
pocket change. Like, at least there's a number, though, right? At least there's a number. But Tom Cruise is apparently going to be going up to the International Space Station at some point to film a movie. So there's kind of some interesting things there. It might have to be like Vanilla Sky, where he has to be like the the antagonist and the protagonist. You know,
Yeah, who all's going to go up there with him? Oh my goodness. Wow.
I
I don't know
know.
if I'd be ready to do that as a civilian yet.
Yeah. But you know, in terms of going back to the moon and space exploration in general, what are your feelings on that? Do you think it's a good thing, or do you think maybe misplaced priorities, or um, what's your feeling on?
Well, I'm older, so I don't know. It's something about, it's almost like respect for the military. It's like something you feel like you just should do as an American. It's more of a feeling than fact or anything else, just because I was born in 69, so I, of course, don't remember. Maybe I should have said that, but now everybody knows how old I am. But so I, of course, don't remember the events that happened right after I was born. But you know, in my generation, there were all these movies and shows about just the importance of exploration and just to be an astronaut. So I don't know, it's just kind of some feeling. Do I think aliens are going to come down and we need to go explore because we don't want to be attacked? I'm not quite there yet. But I have to believe that there are things in space that could help us be better on Earth. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's properties for, you know, they find something that's some miracle cure for something, or if they can see how a planet with this particular combination of gases or whatever makes it, you know, cleaner here. I don't know. I just have to imagine that there's something out there that could benefit us. And then the other part is just if we if we don't continually expand our minds and want to learn what more is out there, then we might as well just give up and say, forget it on everything. It's like, why set a boundary? It's, I don't know, growing up, you know, with my last company where everything was about the growth mindset. I'm a huge proponent of continually bettering yourself and constantly learning. And what bigger canvas of unknowns is there than space? Yes, we still have plenty to do on Earth, don't get me wrong. But there's just so much out there for people. Now, should the government pay for going around and flitting around space and learning, you know, new things? That I don't know. But if you've got the private sector, you've got SpaceX and, the, you know, those guys wanting to do it, then by all means, do it. Just
But
don't bring back anything foreign that like kills Earth.
yeah, I know. Yeah, but um, do you think we, especially like uh, current generations in America, have become a lot more risk averse? I mean, it feels like that whenever uh, you're constantly like in this protected bubble from cradle to the time you're 18, that you really don't have kind of like the background to deal with natural risk and risk with dealing with the physical environment like you would have had if you grew up on a farm and you had to deal with like you know, cows and snakes and you know kind of um, you know just like I mean it feels like that in suburbia Houston, Texas, that kids are really kind of um, in this completely artificially risk-free environment. Not, you know, I mean, they do risky behavior, but it's not like kind of like a good risky behavior in the sense of, um, you know, I mean, it feels like every risk has to be eliminated, every threat has to be eliminated, and then you have a generation that's unable to really balance risk and rewards and deal with kind of like hazards.
I don't know. I don't know if I can really comment on that. I've not given it any thought. I know with my own kids that I don't like for them to fail, so I probably overexert myself into their activities more than I should because I don't want them to make mistakes, which I know is wrong. And every time my daughter goes outside or something, I'm telling her everything that could go wrong, and don't do that, and don't carry this, and don't get on the skateboard, you're going to fall. So from that perspective, I think there is a lot of meddling with that. But I don't know about generally speaking or even use it, because you know, you said kind of good risk versus bad risk, and I don't know the difference either. But I just keep thinking of extreme sports and things like that, that I think there's still a lot of risk taking out there. And maybe it's not this huge risk taking, like would you jeopardize all of Houston to, you know, put a nuclear plant here or something. I'm not talking about that, because I don't know if I could really speak on that level. But I think that the youth do take risk, but it's their own. Like I said, they're not putting Houston in jeopardy. They're putting their own selves in jeopardy, and maybe their friends who are with them. But just people skydiving, climbing to the top of mountains, some without any thought about it. You've got the person who scales the buildings, the magician or whatever. Didn't he just die though or something? But the guy who would scale, I don't remember who it is, but would scale the big buildings. I don't know, maybe because in social media you see all that now. Maybe it is only a few people, but it just seems like there's more of it. So I don't really know, Nathan. I haven't really given that any thought. I think you could probably argue it both ways.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Um, I mean, but it almost feels like, it's better to take little risk, fail, and learn from them, and have that kind of inform your behavior and your risk taking, than to kind of be in a no risk environment and then suddenly be sort of tossed out, and you really have no background for dealing with risk.
I don't know. And you know, they say too that the younger you are, the more risk you're willing to take. I'm very risk averse, totally. So I'm not a good judge on this at all, because I do not take risks. In my job, I might, you know, but they're little ones, like you said. But I don't know. They say that young people are more willing to take larger risks. I don't know if that's changed any, because I don't, until I get to be a teacher, I don't work with a lot of young people. I mean, most of my coworkers were older people, so maybe I'm jaded because they had that kind of risk mentality. I'm not sure.
So if it was safe and affordable, would you have any interest in going to space yourself?
No,
No. Now,
no, not unless there were like monsters on Earth or something that I had to get away from, and I needed to save my family, potentially. Um, Safe. You would have to really, really, really explain safe to me. I remember being in high school when they sent the first teacher up, right? And that didn't go so well when the whole thing exploded, right? We were watching it in class. That was not very good. So I still have that in my mind, and I've watched way too many shows about being stuck on a planet, and then or there's monsters there. So I don't think I would do it. I guarantee my kids would probably do it in a heartbeat.
it's so funny you say that, especially considering our discussion about risk before. I had asked the same question to a mother-daughter pair. The daughter was a junior in high school, and the mother was about our age. And the mother says, "Yes, absolutely," and the daughter's like, "No, I don't think so." And the mother is like really shocked that her daughter said that. It's like this is new information to her, and it's just kind of funny.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not
Ah,
sure how representative that is of people's view, but it was kind of, um, I mean, it was probably a good lesson that we probably don't know as much about other generations, other people, as we might think we do, and it's
yep, yep.
good to be open to learning new things.
Yes, yeah. And like I said, I am not risk adverse. I mean, I am risk averse, right? I've got friends who, you know, have no no problems with a lot of things that there is no way in hell I would ever ever even contemplate doing. So I would agree with that. I don't know if you're talking about a 50-50 split or if it's more of a, the 80-20 really does say that the older you are that you're more adverse to risk or not. So that's interesting. Yeah, I would have thought the daughter would have been, maybe she's watched too many space movies too where it has ended badly and wants no part of it.
That could be. Uh, and I don't know if this has been true with you as well or in other parents, but since becoming a parent, the world has become a more dangerous, awful place. It's like every like thing that could go wrong has already played itself out in my head. I mean, like, uh, your child's backing out of the driveway to go someplace, and in your head you've already seen like running over somebody, getting in an accident,
Yes.
getting pulled over by the cop. It's like, and there's like nothing like it's a perfect driving so far. Or you see a glass on like the edge of a table, and already in your mind it's like been knocked off and turned. People, there's glass on the floor and people have chopped up their feet, and it's like developed
Yep.
into sores. It's
Yep.
just like, so that's happened to you too.
Yes.
Ah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, because I don't know. I've always tended to notice when potentially something could go wrong. I think I played it out in my head. Now I actually say it out loud. I tell my children all the time, um, wait, make sure did you look? Did you look? Did you look back? Now you know that, this could happen. Yes, Mom, I know. Or, hey, move that glass in just a little bit from the edge because it's going to end up on the floor. So now I actually say it out loud instead of just to myself and think about it. Now my kids know everything that's in my brain as well. But yes, I think parenting brings that out in you. You just can't help it.
I've found though that talking about it seems to not have the reaction that one would hope. Like, uh, you know, no, I don't think that will actually cause it to fall off. In fact, they push it further out towards the edge. And then, sure enough, they're paying attention to it and it doesn't. They're like, see, you weren't worried about anything. But you're like, oh, but life lesson. I can't, all the knowledge and experience I have is completely useless because you have to redo it all yourself.
My daughter and I, she's young. She's gonna be a third grader. We had this conversation a few weeks ago about why you should just listen to Mom. It's like, I'm old enough, I know. So when I tell you something, there's probably a reason I'm telling you that, and you should just accept it. She came out with a balloon. And I said, I don't think you want to be outside with the balloon. You know what happens if you let go? It's going to, oh, Mama, I'm not going to let it go. Nothing's going to happen. I've got the balloon. Sure enough, 4 minutes later, if that balloon didn't end up in the air, and I had to say, I'm not mad at you. I just want you to know, Mom knows what she's talking about. Not all the time, but in these things, I know what I'm talking about. So please give me the respect I deserve. But yeah, you got to let them learn because now she knows listen to Mom, which she still won't do, like you said, but she'll remember back to that balloon, and next time she'll go, maybe I shouldn't take a balloon outside. Or I'm going to tie it very, very tight. So yes, they don't listen to you, even though you have very valid reasons as to why they should.
And some people will say experience is the best teacher, but I've come to believe that experience is like the only teacher, and the only thing that you could do is, keep from talking over the teacher, so that people can and learn from it.
Yep. Yep. Now, if it's something really, really critical, life-threatening or something, then I will find, they would probably listen to you, and you would probably listen to the authorities more than trying to just wing it on your own. But the smaller things with less consequences, yeah, you just wing it, and then you learn from it. It's like, didn't I last time I did that? Didn't I like lose a finger or something? Maybe I shouldn't do that anymore.
Yeah, you're like, I only could learn it 9 more times. Unless you're Anne Boleyn, in which case you could do it 11 times. But
Yeah.
anyway,
That was probably a bad joke somewhere in there, but
yeah, probably. Um, well, I mean, she had 6 fingers on each hand, so
yes,
Yeah, cool.
No, I meant
Um,
we probably weren't supposed to talk about that.
oh, yes. Anyway, I don't know. Well, is there anything that you want to talk about that we didn't talk about?
No, so what are your thoughts? So would you be up in space in a heartbeat?
I'm scared of heights. I would like skydiving would be a big growing experience for me. But I have no trouble flying like a small airplane. So, being in a capsule seems to be fine. I have
Enclosed.
enclosed, yeah. I have trouble like being next to the edge of like a tall building. Um, I also don't like roller coasters, so I'm not sure how I like that. But I have gone on the zero G flight, also known as the vomit comet, where you take these parabolic flights and you get a float, and that was really nice. It did not make me sick at all.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, so it was just like you're just floating free, and it's great. So um, I don't know, I probably would, but it would have to be a lot cheaper than it is now. Like the Virgin Galactic flight is like, well, I mean, there's this suborbital company, Virgin Galactic. They're selling suborbital flights for $250,000, where they take you up and you go above the Earth's atmosphere. And it's kind of floating for a while. So uh, you know, potentially you could save up for that. But at the same token, I don't think I would unless, I mean, I would think I would have to be like you know, a multi-millionaire before I could justify spending that kind of money on
All
on
that
that.
money. Yeah.
I mean, it was like $10,000. Sign me up. So that type of thing. But
It's interesting when you say that, just getting above the orbit, because when I think of going into space, I've always thought about, going to another planet or something. But I think it would be cool to be up high enough that you could just view down at Earth, or, be floating and just floating and taking everything in. Now, granted, there's tons of pictures and all that. So what do you really get out of it more than just the experience of breathing it and feeling it? That actually, I think, would be pretty cool. Do I want to go walk around on foreign planets? No, but I think looking down um, and just seeing what that's like to say you did it, I am with you. If it was cheap, or cheap
and
lottery
safe.
system or something, you want it, and safe, then yeah, I may revise my answer on that.
Yeah, I mean, if like 100,000 people had done it before me and there's like no incident, you're like, I think it's probably pretty safe. I'll do that. Um, but
Yeah, I'm not an early adopter. I'm with you. Yeah, prove it out.
Yeah, but you talk about all these pictures versus being there in person, and I've also thought about that too. Have you ever like stood on the edge of like a canyon or what have you, and you take some pictures and you're like, wow, this is like really amazing. But then you go and show those pictures to somebody else, and they're like, ah. Or you're next to a tall
Yes.
building and you like try to take a picture. Look how tall this building is, and they're like, no,
Yeah,
okay.
doesn't do it justice as actually being there. Yep,
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
mean, I almost feel like that's a good reason to send people is because while you might be able to get a certain amount of data and images, you won't be able to get that emotional connection or
Yeah.
response.
But virtual reality, they're doing a lot with that now, that you almost feel like you're there, so you don't get the breathing aspect, right? You can't breathe in, and I'm sure they could set it up something where you actually feel like you're weightless. But I think virtual reality, as it expands and becomes more realistic, then that might be an alternative, especially for people who can't afford it that still want to experience it.
Plus,
I
it'll
don't
be
know, maybe that's
safer.
already there. That's probably how astronauts train now, is with some high-tech virtual reality. So it's probably there, just not to the masses.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, it's like scalable. You may not be able to take an entire high school class to the moon, but with virtual reality, you can make them feel like they had gone and come back to some
Yeah,
degree. So.
yeah. I think we're close. You could have the fan blowing on you, so it's like you're outside. I don't know. I'm sure they could come up with something that the taste and the senses is the part they gotta work on. I'm sure they could do something that would make you shake, like you could be in an enclosure or something that you would shake. I don't know how else you would. Maybe they turn you upside down. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think we're too far off on that.
Yeah, especially whenever it's no longer using your eyes and your senses for you to be in that virtual environment, whenever it's more of, your brain's tied directly
Thinks you there.
into
Yeah.
thinks you there. Yeah. At that
Now that's
point,
kind of scary because now, now you're going down a whole other path about, brain perception.
and would you believe Elon Musk has a company called Neuralink that is developing brain prosthetics that right now they're focused on kind of quadriplegics and giving them the ability to feel like they're typing on a keyboard uh, and feel like their ability to move around a mouse. But the ultimate goal is to essentially create a kind of like another layer to human. Uh, it'd be like your PDA, but directly connected to your brain. So there's work being done there as well.
I haven't heard of his, but I have heard of a lot of engineering working collaboratively with the medical profession on things like that, on how they could use the ability to tap into your brain to actually do more with prosthetics and stuff, but not so much the perception of it. I think they're trying to have your brain actually do more. Interesting. Yeah, he's doing a lot, isn't he? He's
Yeah,
exploring. He's one of those risk. He's one of those risk people. I don't know how old he is, but he's not. How old is Elon Musk?
I think he's probably. I I want to say he's 69, but
Okay,
that
yeah.
doesn't seem right.
I don't know.
Is that even
I could ask
possible?
Google, but
Yeah, exactly. If
I won't
only
say it
there
out
was,
loud. She'll talk to me.
if only there was a way to get answers to questions like that. Um, well, thank you so much, Stacy. I really appreciate your time. And if you know other people that would be willing to participate, I got 1,600 plus more days to go.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you reaching out to me. This was fun, and glad to help you out anytime. And it was great talking to you again, Nathan. And if I get some names together, I'll forward them over to you.
Sounds great. Well, you have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye, Nathan.
Bye bye.
Bye.